So what I notice about human life and life on earth is that there are moments of horror and moments of beauty, moments of happiness, sadness, all these states that we experience. And I feel one of the great damages that the New Age movement perpetrated back in the 20th century was this idea we must always be focusing on the positive. What a load of crap. Human beings experience the positive and the negative, the light and the dark, the love and the horror, all of these things. And so what I realized is that my journey as a shaman particularly has taught me to accept, first of all the horrific things that have ever happened to me and to happen to all people, and then to take a leap from acceptance. And the leap from acceptance is as follows. I've met many people who've experienced sexual abuse and satanic abuse, and what I discover with them is that once they've reached a certain point in their life's journey, they start to harvest the riches of their special abilities. So all people who've been through these experiences, when they reach a certain point, they get special abilities. And one of the ways you can respond to that is to have the talent and sit on it and do nothing with it. Pretty rubbish choice. Or you can actually step up and become a healer, or a counsellor, or an advisor, or someone who just listens in their daily life to people in trouble. Or maybe they walk past a person who's in tears in the railway station, and they don't walk past. They maybe walk past, turn around and go up to the person and say, hello, I'm here if you want to have some human company. And it's very important, if someone is deeply distressed in a public place, you've got to be quite careful the way you approach them. So you do need to approach them quite carefully and gently, and it's very much you offer an invitation. So you don't put your arms around them, you don't do anything demonstrative, you don't take control, you give them their space, but you just let them know that you're here. And that could have a remarkable benefit and consequence for that person. So we all develop these special abilities, which is really great. So this is all part of it. So we move from, first of all, we're in resistance to all the horrors in the world, and we let go of that. We go into acceptance of them because they confer upon us special abilities. To give you a very simple example, when I watched my wife with cancer, including her slowly dying, for a 25-year period, I gained an incredible gift. The gift I gained is the gift of endurance. I gained that same gift, even more magnified, when I was a child, age 10, being raped, because I learnt to endure what was going on. So endurance might be quite underrated. You might not put it in your top 5 of special abilities or superpowers, but if you can endure something, that's an incredible gift. So I endured many years of driving up and down the motorway to be with her when she needed my help, and to give her space when she needed her space. So this is an example of how these special abilities can come about. So what I'm saying is, I've started in resistance to my horrific experiences, then I move into acceptance. When I move into acceptance, the special abilities arise. Because these special abilities arise, that means I can go into the final place, which is appreciation. So I wrote this in my book, Sex Magic. Someone asked me a question, when you think back to the abuse, how do you feel about it all now? And my answer is, I'm grateful for all my experiences. So I move into gratitude, which is more powerful than acceptance. And this is the golden ticket for you. Now, I want to share a very special story with you indeed. Of course, this is all totally confidential. I work with many clients with various different forms of abuse. This particular client had experienced satanic sexual abuse from the age of being a baby to the age of being 5. Okay, that's way beyond my ability to conceive of anything, because what happened to me years later when I was 10. And yet I can be in empathy. That's another special ability of people who've been through these things. We become empathic with the pain of others. We don't feed off their pain. We don't nourish ourselves from their pain. We don't enjoy their pain. We actually empathize, which is really important. And when someone has been triggered and they've gone into this other place, one of the best ways you can reach them is if you can empathize with their pain. That really helps too. So empathizing with pain is an incredibly powerful thing and a great special ability. But here's the thing, I need to own up to it. I'm going to own up to it now. I only found out about what happened to me as a child when I was approaching the age 40, and that was when I hit my Uranus opposition, which is an astrological time roughly age 38 to 42, when all the shit that hasn't been dealt with comes up to be looked at. So I was blissfully ignorant of all the things that happened to me as a child until this age, and it all came out for me to look at. An amazing moment indeed. From that moment until today, I have actually been in resistance. This is the resistance I've been in, because ever since I discovered how horrifically I've been treated as a child, my feeling was this: that was horrible, I want to get healed, and then I'm going to be better, and then when I'm better, this won't affect me anymore, and the past will be gone and done and dusted and finished, and I'll be completely in the now. I've been like that since around about the age of 40 up until today. So it all sounds a bit grim, doesn't it? Let's flip the whole thing over 180 degrees, bang. Nothing is as it seems, dudes. Because people who've experienced sexual abuse as a child have got special powers. They've got superpowers, they've got magical abilities. Now mine happened to be a shamanic practitioner. It's different for each person. But we've got special powers because of these experiences. So it's far more horrific than you can imagine if you haven't had this experience. And it's to do with the vulnerability. And so a question you could ask, I'll just do a quick sidebar: why do people rape children? Why do they do it? It's because children are innocent, and that innocence confers power upon them. So we'll go very, very briefly into satanic abuse. Satanic abuse is when it gets 1,000 times worse, which is what I experienced, because that's when the people aren't just doing this in a mindless way. It's not just someone getting their rocks off anymore. It's a group, and this group are actually extracting the energy from that child and using it for dark magic, for nefarious purposes, for evil. Let's be blunt, yeah? So that's the whole strand thing, isn't it? Yeah, so that can happen as well, and that sets up a whole load of other things too. Obviously it's bound to do. So what I'm explaining is I have reclaimed my innocence a long time ago. That's a relatively straightforward thing to do. But what, 27 years later, and I still haven't got a complete handle on this, I can still be triggered today. Someone can get really angry with me, and I would go into that other realm, and I would then be unreachable, and it would then take time. So the huge superpowers that you get from this is as follows. Because of this disruption in my life, and because of this peak experience that confers on me particular abilities. So it means, I'll give you a simple example, I can be with a large group of people. This is something I did. One of the many things I do is I'm a celebrant, so only special requests. I don't advertise a service. Funerals. So it was a funeral I was doing for someone who was a friend. Passed away, doing this funeral for the remaining loved ones. And I prepared my entire funeral program beforehand, obviously, as I would do as a celebrant, and there was over 100 people there, and they were out in the middle of nowhere in wild nature, and they were all there, and I walked down the hill into the valley, and I arrived with all my stuff all prepared, and within 1.5 seconds I knew that there were two kinds of people here. There was one kind of people that would love what I do, and there was another kind of people, about half of them, about 50 people, would hate what I do, be seriously pissed off and angry, and that there could be some kind of a ruckus created. And I knew that within 1.5 seconds. So what I did is I never even got all my stuff out to use. The entire plan was ditched, and I created a completely new ceremony from scratch with no warning. Now the reason I can do that is because of what happened to me as a child. I had to switch from reality to reality so rapidly. It goes straight from rape to Sunday dinner, metaphorically speaking. At this point in this film, I must make out it was not a member of my family that did this to me. It was no one connected with my family directly at all. Completely separate source, just so you know. So for me, the Sunday dinner wasn't the issue, but I'm using it as a metaphorical example. So this is one of the powers. It means I have the ability to assess a person, a situation or a group or a large body of people far more rapidly than other people are capable of doing, because I had to do that in order to survive. I had to actually be able to be very flexible, because my constant aim all the time as a child being sexually abused and made to perform satanic rituals, I had to always act in the way to reduce the amount of harm to myself and others. I was always doing that. So that's a great gift. So I've got many divinatory skills because of that. Also, because of my childhood experiences, I got to experience some of the shamanic realms when I was only a child. So when I actually started to do my formal training, and when I got to go to the upper world and I started to use my shamanic divination practice and my shamanic art, I've got a film about shamanic art you can see about that if you want to know more. Well, that was amazing, because I realized that actually a lot of these things I was learning as a shaman were a lot easier for me than most people, because it already related to skills and abilities, attributes I developed as a child. So this is the thing that I want you to understand. It's not all doom and gloom. There are great gifts to be gained from that experience for that human being. So really it's like this. I'll give you a timeline now. A child has normal life. Abuse starts. Abuse continues. At some point, presumably abuse stops. Then we go back to normal life. Yeah, so it's normal life, abuse, normal life. And then that phase, that's when the person's kind of like asleep, they don't know this thing happened to them. And then the next thing, so if you've got normal life, abuse, normal life, then the awakening point. The awakening point is when they get to discover what happened to them. And that can be utterly horrific, as you can imagine, and this usually happens in adulthood because they're not capable, they're usually not spiritually mature enough to cope with it earlier. But there are rare exceptions. I feel Teal Swan's an exception, because there's something else you need to clarify. She never had the memory shut down that I had. So with me, complete blank the whole thing. So some people it doesn't happen. Some people actually remember these things. I find that very hard to conceive of myself, because I had a total shutdown for decades. So that can happen as well with people. So there's an awakening moment, and that is as it is, and then the person has to deal with it and come to terms with that. And the more people that can validate their experiences, the easier it's going to be for them. If you're around people that invalidate your experiences, that throws you right back into the abuse situation again, because that's what the experience was, the invalidation. And then finally, the exciting bit on this process is this is when the magic powers start to become obvious. And sometimes it will be, well, actually, I've always done that thing. I never realised I've always been able to just size up a situation and know exactly what to do without giving it a moment's thought. I never realised that actually is a special power. That's really cool, I can do that. Or I can do this thing or that thing. Or it could be a degree of empathy. So another thing that comes up, empaths. Many, many empaths have experienced sexual abuse as children, or torture, or both. Because this really helps them to be able to have true grasp of the suffering of others. And this is incredibly important if you're going to be a shamanic practitioner or some other kind of a healer. So actually, people who've been through the abuse paradigm have a very good probability of being able to be good healers. And of course, for the rare minority that choose to come out of the closet, like myself and Teal, that is a gift in itself, because this helps other people. So I want you to understand how important this is. There was a point in my life when I was working for an organisation. We created camps, a tented conference centre under campus, we used to call ourselves. Sounds very pretentious, doesn't it? It's a camp. People come there, have experiences, and then they go. Well, at the point in my process, this, when I was opening up to being aware this actually happened to me, was all connected to being at these camps. It was in the first year or two of being aware of this. And I remember speaking to one woman about this, and I had a caravan in this camp. That's where I lived during the summer season. I'd be there for 2.5 months as an unpaid volunteer. And I started talking to her, and within a very short space of time, a whole succession of women started turning up at my caravan and knocking in at my door, and they were coming, and they would spend hours with me. And some of the other people in the camps must have thought, oi, 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 what's going on with Keith? He's having a good time this season. They hadn't a clue, of course. But actually what was happening is because I was a safe man. You see how it works? I was a safe man. That meant that these women could talk to me and actually share. So I ended up performing an incredibly valuable service for which I never got paid, never wanted to be paid, never even thought about being paid. So just so you can understand about the magical powers you can develop, it could be something as simple as being able to listen to someone who's been through it. And that's making inestimable value in terms of the world's evolution. Because I want to take us all the way up to the biggest picture now. I'm not looking at this from the perspective of the worm's eye view. The worm's eye view, it's utterly horrific, no one should ever experience it. Let's go to the eagle's eye view, looking down at the planet and realizing that millions of children are experiencing this. And it's always been going on. I live with the thought there will be a day when it doesn't. Am I naive? I don't know, but that's the way I am. So there is a really bigger picture part of all this, which is that I had learnt when I did a particular form of journeying with a woman, wonderful woman, and it was called Brandon-based journeying, and she took me in the journeying realms, which meant it was a safe way to go, to actually when the group of, I never like to call them men or women, I like to call them beings. I don't like to dignify them with a human appellation like men. So these beings that did what they did to me when I was a child, when they were doing that, journeyed to actually that happening safely, or safely done, what became clear to me and my facilitator in that piece of work is that actually those people who did what they did on a deep spiritual level, they were training me. And they were training me in the powers of endurance. And I can endure things. This is definitely one of my superpowers apart from being a shaman. I can endure things that a lot of people will just cave in and just cop out and not be able to do. Because that's why I learned as a child. I can withstand this, I can withstand this, I can endure, I can endure, I can endure. So that's a really great gift that people who've been through this stuff have. The ability to endure things which are difficult and challenging. That's a great gift. So, my feeling is that looking at from the bigger picture of the eagle's eye, there's a whole tranche of human beings that are getting these special powers conferred upon them so they can then help as many as possible that have been through these experiences, and we can make the world a better place. And also, of course, the long-term picture is no one's going to do it anymore. I think we're way away from that happening yet, and that's way outside of the scope of this film. And today my major breakthrough, thank you to the plants, thank you to the loving support I received from my partner, and my shaman brother I've spoken about before, thanks to you all, I'm now ready to let go of my resistance, which means that I go into acceptance. And this means that I accept that actually in my daily life I can be triggered at any point that can cause me to go into this other place of unimaginable, unspeakable pain, and that's how life is. And I've developed all these coping strategies of watching films and TV shows and reading books, which is just entertaining myself with stories, and that's how it is. And there are times I choose to work with the plants to help me when I'm having a hard time, and that's how it is. I've let go of wanting to be better. I've let go of hoping to be cured. I accept this is my life as it is, and may it continue just as long as it does, and that's okay now. I have never been able to think that or feel that before the moment of saying these words in front of the camera, because I was so attached to being free of this. I wanted to be free. No more. I accept it. And I know my journey will be to go from acceptance to appreciation, and from appreciation to love. Because always, it's all about the love. Everything, all the time, all about the love. Me accepting what was done to me. Me choosing to send love out to all beings, including those that hurt others. It was a great moment when I did some shamanic journeying work with a wonderful person, and she took me to the place of actually loving and appreciating the ones that did what they did to me when I was a kid. I did that a long time ago. It's all a fascinating journey, isn't it, life? But remember, it's always all about the love. Thank you very much.